Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Buonasera e ben...
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the fifth talk. Talk change is possible, or working better working. We're going to talk about work and employment, but we're also going to talk about inclusion. And this is what Prime Minister Mario Draghi talked about this morning, providing means to everyone in order to achieve objectives. First of all, good evening, Enrico Castelli, who's going to host the session with me tonight. Hello, good evening to you all here in the room and online. Today we're going to talk about the weakest in Bologna and Rome, and we will have a look at the prison in Nisida, where they can find a job. And we're going to talk about equal opportunities at work with the leader of Group L'Oréal. We're going to talk about that with our guest, Elena Bonetti, Minister for Equal Opportunities and Family. Good evening. Thank you for being here with us. Giovanni Fosti, President of Cariplo Foundation. Good evening. Bruno Piraccini, President of Orogel. Good evening. And connected with us, we have Carola Carazzone, Secretary General of Assifero, the association grouping together 130 foundations worldwide. Today, we are going to start talking about a report that the Foundation for Subsidiarity, which is organizing this talk, has just published on Italy from a social perspective. Mario Draghi said this morning, we're here at the meeting, a place where we have to look ahead and think about the country that we are and that we want to become. And it was quite moving. And a piece of this country is described by the report of the Foundation for Subsidiarity, which we're going to present now in this video. We're dealing with the projects for families with disabled children. Every year, we are financing some 15 projects in Lombardy. Thanks to tax benefits, we have funded 1/3 of our projects. To us, tax benefits are very important because it enables children to study and to find a job, to find a way forward. Without that, some of our activities helping the poor and finding food will not be possible. So these tax benefits allocate money to 350,000 institutes Over the past 10 years, we have had more money within a 61% increase of aid. Italians like no profit and therefore are helping us. And they are right, looking at the latest data of the report by the Foundation for Subsidiarity on the social development made in collaboration with the National Statistics Institute. The risk for poverty is increasing and is helping labor. But because it enables people, it develops creativity, intelligence, flexibility, also when people are looking for a job. Subsidiarity also has an impact on many other aspects of life. Also, it decreases the risk of poverty because it decreases solidarity, education, culture. It decreases the possibilities of deaths that can be avoided due to bad behaviors, and it improves people's well-being. It is important to have a dialogue with other people. This way, life is easier because man is made for relations. In other words, relations, networking can improve the quality of life. And this is also important for politics. The top regions on the Subsidiarity Index, Trentino and the northeast of Italy, shows that helping social institutions with public funds helps a lot. The North has a better situation in terms of non-profit organizations. But in the South, when public funds can give help, everything changes, even in the most difficult neighborhoods like Scampia or the Sanita neighborhood in Naples or Zen in Palermo. So solidarity can develop there where it is most needed. And we've seen that during the pandemic and in Ukraine, where volunteers have worked a lot for solidarity. As we have just heard in the video, talking to Minister Bonetti, we have heard that having relations, working for the non-profit, attending volunteering trainings is important. And this is somewhat surprising. What actions is politics implementing for that? Well, politics can first and foremost acknowledge the strategic value of the principle of subsidiarity, which was introduced in our Constitution, not as a remedy, not as a replacement, but rather as an incentive for development and as an incentive for creativity. As Professor Vittadini said, it is important to work on a strategic element, as in networking, working in a community, having relations where everyone can contribute, so that people can achieve their own objectives and at the same time contribute to the material and spiritual well-being of the community. This is strategic. And that also acknowledges the personal identity, but also it contributes to social initiative. What can politics do in that context? It can work on personal relations and community relations and their infrastructures. I will give you an example on which I've been working, the world of education. The world of education from 0 to 6 years old. In Italy, now, there's no entitlement, there's no right to education for all children, especially in the south of Italy. There are 10 out of 100 children that can go to the creche. And training in the first years of life is fundamental. Today, 27% of children go to the creche. Half of them go to state schools. The other half go to the private sector that have a very scattered educational possibilities. So we can create strategic alliances so we can implement different initiatives to build up a system where school, the tertiary sector, and local authorities can make strategic alliance to provide formal and informal education. Summer schools, associations, and volunteering are strategic. So Italy can win only if everyone can contribute to this. So there must be a better connection with the third sector. Yes, not just in designing initiatives, but also the third sector has to design and implement initiatives within the community. So the third sector has to work hand in hand with the public administration, and this has evolved over the years. Carola Carazzone, she contributed to the report of Subsidiarity, and she studied the relation between third sector and public administration. How has this relation changed over the years? Well, the reform of the third sector has made a leap forward with Article 55 in particular, which implements the principle of subsidiarity and opens up new opportunities for national modernization. Article 55 states that in relations between Italy and the third sector, the traditional hierarchical and competitive system based on relations which were not on an equal footing must be changed and must be planned. So there must be administrative practices based on new mechanisms of dialogue and collaboration between public administration and citizens through third sector organizations. So we need a shift towards an alliance based on an equal footing, which cannot be taken for granted. There are some differences, and also there's a gap in terms of competition and skills. Because in the past, we only used to have bids. Bids were central for initiatives, but this is no longer the case. Talking about the third sector, let's see together the numbers that were presented in the report. Today, the third sector includes 375,000 organizations, 5% of the GDP, 4 million volunteers. Here you can see the numbers, almost 1,000 people working in the third sector. President Fosti, the Cariplo Foundation during the pandemic worked tremendously and helped 1,300 associations. Has the COVID emergency forced to change your way of working? In March 2020, everything was shut up. In 2022, Cariplo has totally redesigned its planning because we realized that we needed to do something different from what we used to do. We had the impression that there was no the dedicated attention to the third sector. Institutions of the third sector were at risk of closing down, not just for the largest organizations, but also for the smallest organizations that are scattered throughout the country and which do not only provide services, but also are very useful in establishing relations within the community. If a service provider fails, there is another service provider coming up and replacing the first one. But an institution that creates relations within the community can create skills, can develop trust, and this is an asset for the community. So we made a bid in order to make third sector organizations survive, operating in the field of services to citizens, culture, and environment, with the necessary skills to create relations within the community. The bid was worth 15 million euros, which is much more than any other bid that we had in the past. It allocated money to the institutions directly, and the main criteria was the ability of these institutions to create relations within the community. And this is no corporate bid for the third sector. This bid acknowledges the fact that the third sector plays a crucial role for the community. So it provides resources to the third sector because it is fundamental for the community. So what you're saying is very important from a cultural perspective, because this is a really cultural challenge. So yes, we need to acknowledge the value of these institutions. Now, we're going to show you two entities out of these 375,000 entities. In Milan and Bologna, we have seen what it means to work in terms of inclusion. Here you go with the video. The day when I was given the money, when I was given the funds, actually the days before, because I got a mail telling me that I was allocated the money, I cried. Here, it's like a family. You live well. It's a family. There's everything here. And I have to thank for that. This is help, which is not just charity. This is a sort of a philanthropy, a sustainable charity, but there's much more than that. And this is the case of the Welfare Foundation of Milan. It was set up in 2009, and it's creating opportunity for people having problems. The people who got poorer with the latest economic crisis. So we have started working on the microcredit, which supports people giving small grants, so that the family having a lower income can hope and can go on. Then we anticipated redundancies. When money from the government was coming too late, we made loans, and we also helped young people in developing their enterprises. So we helped the people to help themselves. So we gave credits to people so that people could play a proactive role and help themselves to overcome difficulties. And then there's also the social cooperative called the Fraternità, Brotherhood, located in Ozzan, that was set up 23 years ago, and it is located in different Italian regions with 12 branches and 15,000 people that have been supported. Don Oreste Benzi founded this community with the aim to welcome people. Then over the time, we realized that many people don't need a family, but need to be supported to stay in their own house and to support their own families. Hence, the cooperative was set up. The main operational branch is based in Bologna, but now Fraternità, our community, is present throughout Italy. We provide many services, not just assistance, but it accompanies people. For the people who want to work in order to redeem themselves and to reacquire dignity. There are many dioceses that are engaged in that. It is more important to earn than to produce, because earning is important to support oneself. But if you could earn the same money without working, it would be better to work than giving up a job. So today, there are some policies supporting people and supporting the unemployed, and they must continue working to help people to find a job, because people can accomplish themselves in the job, working. They can have a better social role, and they contribute to the life of the community. So finding oneself, once again, working in a different way. This is what the Welfare Ambrosiano Foundation is trying to do, after an idea by Father Oreste Benzi. As Pavese would say, it's nice to live because living means to start again. And this is the help that can be done. Help that can be given to anyone, to new entrepreneurs, and that can be seen today in the life of these people. I have decided to become an entrepreneur because I felt the need to manage my own life. I wanted to decide myself the type of services I wanted to provide and how best to serve the customer. As I wasn't working before and I was living in the street, I had a totally different life. I came here and I found out different values, and I found out many aspects of myself that I didn't know before. And the job has helped me because you can find out many different things about yourself. Well, to me, it was magic. This is what I really needed while I was looking for something new. We have introduced some intelligent containers in shopping centers where we can collect the books, we can collect the clothes, because we want to do good to the people. And this is something that I learned in the community. If you do good to people, you do good to yourself. Well, it's nice to see the people who feel they have been helped. President Piraccini, president of Orogel, a cooperative that was set up more than 50 years ago after the initiative of 10 farmers. Now you have 1,600 members and more than 2,000 employees. How can you help your employees? And here I'm talking about corporate welfare. You provide loans to employees, you give social housing to the people who are most in need, you provide funds. My question to you is the following. What is the return on investment for you? What do you earn out of that? Why do you have to do it?
Grazie.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation here tonight. Your question is extremely topical because our group is committed, deeply committed in the welfare policy through different initiatives. Some of them were those you mentioned, that concern different sectors of the needs of our employees to meet the needs of the people that work with us is a way to commit oneself to granting more contacts with among colleagues, and at the same time providing more certainty and giving our employees the opportunity to work better. So this means having more cohesion, more inclusion in a way, because we should not forget that 20% of our employees are immigrants. So, well, we have a real need for this kind of initiatives because they create cohesion and inclusion. And these are fundamental parts of the success of an enterprise, of a company. So it's not, so to speak, an economic return on investment. There is also a human and ethical component, but these investments do have a very important return. Thank you. That was very clear. Minister Bonetti, we listened to the words of the Vicar of Bologna that aid should help people help themselves. So this doesn't mean that people should stop looking for a job. So what can we do? What can we say about some tools that we are using in Italy at the moment? Well, there is a debate on in terms of the aid for a certain category of citizens. In our country, we have situations of people that are very frail, people and communities, and they are completely different from one person to another. There can be temporary problems, and there can be problems linked with real poverty. So how can we help people go back to a situation where they can actually develop their opportunities for them and for their own community, because our own contribution, if it is not used, means that we are losing a potential talent that could be beneficial to all citizens. So this is a principle of constitutional dignity that has to be granted. So this kind of tool does not work because it is the result of a misunderstanding. You cannot overcome your situation of poverty alone. You cannot, there are no individuals that can find back their path through life on their own without a community and a joint responsibility. So this is the key element. The welfare services in municipalities before the actions that was carried out during the Draghi administration didn't even know who were those who benefited from these tools. So, second, an economic incentive that is not invested to activate new skills and new jobs is money that is not spent in a fruitful way, because people continue to be dependent on this aid. I would just mention an example, 20 billion euros in the universal single check for families. This check was meant to acknowledge the contribution that families give in growing up their children. So this is an incentive to new projects. So this form of income needs to be completely changed. It has to be part of the third sector network. And we also need to invest resources in order to activate it together with local entities and the third sector, working parts for people and to support family and social frailty situations through services that do recognize the dignity these people are looking for. Let's go back to another aspect. So what do you actually do? So this is my question to you. When you decide to give financial aid to a certain entity, where do you start from? The Cariplo Foundation, I just give a few figures, pays about 150 million euros every year in the Lombardy region, and a small part of these resources are given after an analysis, after a series of proposals, or rather applications, have been assessed, and part of the resources that are given to the people who benefit from this are the result of bids, or rather tenders. So there are proposals that our foundation tables for non-profit bodies in order to intervene in sectors that could actually meet the existing needs. There are different ways to actually meet these needs. So Cariplo Foundation prepares proposals, identifies a need, then makes an assessment, turns it into a bid, into a tender, and through this it proposes something new to the entities and the bodies on the territory. One of the latest is that of the aging problem. The aging population is one of the key problems we are now facing in our country. And another one is that on culture, because I think this is extremely important, the way it has been structured. This bid recognizes a key topic, that is to say, access to culture. We do believe that in a solid society, when there is an offer, that offer is at the disposal of everyone. So once you offer something, you offer that to everyone. Well, that's what the situation used to be, but the situation has now changed because there are people who have access and then they can grab this opportunity, and people who do not have access because they don't have the tools to understand, to access these projects. So you need to start looking for your beneficiaries. So we have a bid that does not finance new initiatives, but it actually funds a work of connection, which is extremely topical. So you look for beneficiaries, young people mainly, that are offered a few cultural opportunities so that they can have at their disposal something that is already there, something they can have access to for free. So instead of funding the new cultural initiatives, we fund the link between existing cultural opportunities and young people. In a country where inequality is growing, this kind of work is extremely important, and it doesn't have to do with welfare services alone. Well, what you just said makes me think that we need a change in mentality on the part of those who work in the third sector. So a new way of thinking, a new way of working. So you are trying to bring about a change. Yes, to say that we want a change in mentality can be something maybe too general, and it's some kind of judgmental sentence. So, well, we know that the last few years were overwhelming, so to speak. Our communities are changing profoundly. The way we work is changing. There is an increasing gender gap. There is an increasing inequality, and there is more fragmentation within our community. And there is also the presence of more and more clusters. That is to say, people meet and debate among themselves, but they cannot do that outside their groups. And so in this fragmented community, it is important to add something, because there are a lot of things that are still missing, but most of all, we need to connect. So I believe that the theme of connection, putting all the different pieces together, is what makes the difference at the moment. So we all together need to acknowledge the need for this society to build something, to create a new knowledge, and this is what we can do together as a community. Carola Carazzone, you are connected, so I will now turn to you. But first, we wanted to tackle a very specific question in terms of inclusion. So that is gender equality. Why women normally are paid less than men when they perform the same kind of work. So it is some kind of provocative question. So we decided to ask this question to the world's the big group, the L'Oreal group, and she's responsible for the gender questions.
Alongside disability, ethnicity, religion, sexuality, but also age. To reach gender equity among genders, it's important to reach or to make sure that there is no salary gap. When we started looking into it, we realized that there was a gap. So by measuring it year after year, we were able to close that gap. Why? Because oftentimes women and men, when they start off their first job, this is where the gap begins. Men will tend to negotiate maybe immediately, whereas women will be very thankful and will be delighted to have this great opportunity and will not address the financial aspect. So the gap starts from the start. And then we can see many cases over the years through maternity leave and whatnot, where sometimes it's not always. So now everyone is trained throughout our teams across the world in HR to make sure that women, when coming back from mat leave, for instance, are systematically reevaluated.
Because in Italy, you have recently signed a contract to promote family-oriented initiatives.
Yes.
So why did you make this choice, which is not so common nowadays, and what do you want to achieve?
Okay, so first of all, maybe I'll just backtrack a tiny bit. In 2013, we decided to create in our share and care program at L'Oréal, making sure that women who were going to welcome a baby in their household or give birth to a baby were able to have a real maternity leave. Now, this may seem obvious to some countries where we have a paid leave. It is not the case in many countries where we operate, including, for instance, the United States. So there's no maternity leave. So we made sure that there was at least 14 weeks of paid leave for women who were becoming mothers around the world. And then in 2019, so a few years later, we decided to extend this to fathers, but also to co-parents. The idea here is to really make sure that a child is welcome and can have his or her parent there. And if they have two parents, both of them there to really be there as they're beginning a family. So why did we do this? Well, we really strongly believe that it is absolutely crucial to reach gender equity, that men, women, people of all genders can spend time becoming a parent.
When you have to hire someone, how do you avoid to be influenced by any sort of prejudice in terms of gender, race, religion, or whatever?
So that's a great question. That's a really good question. So we do it many ways. First of all, we train all of our talent acquisitions team every year on unconscious biases, because we all have biases. So once we've acknowledged this, it's good to remember year after year that we keep having them. But what's absolutely crucial is to get the whole ecosystem trained, and not just the recruiters, because the recruiters will be the first ones to reach out. But then the person actually, the candidate will actually meet several people within the organization and will end up being recruited by a manager. So it's our responsibility to make sure that everyone throughout the company is trained not only on unconscious biases, but also on making sure that once candidates are selected and are recruited, that the onboarding is actually truly inclusive, so that we make sure that we actually know how to keep these talents and make them grow.
Il tema della
So the theme of wage equity is just one of the aspects that are connected with gender equity. Another aspect is that of maternity leave, and it often penalizes women. And Ms. Carazzone, you are a lawyer and you are an expert in the field of rights, human rights. So we heard what is happening outside of Italy. So what is the difference between the Italian situation and that in Europe, the European situation? Well, first of all, nowadays, and this is different from what happened 10 years ago, we have data. We have European data, we have comparable data, we have the data of the European Institute for Gender Equality that monitors every year the progress on 7 pillars: work, finance, knowledge, power, time, health, and violence. And this is a perspective that of this European institution that is very well structured, and it is very useful because it compares gender inequality among different sectors, so we can better understand the complexity of the situation, because obviously when we look at some data, and we see that Italy is the 27th country out of 27 in terms of women employment. Well, this is a terrible situation. But this also helps us to look at the causes of this, and we can look at the reasons why the situation is as it is right now. So we have some kind of equity, gender equity during the school years. Then sometimes there is even a situation of segregation at university levels, and the kind of studies that women and men decided to follow in Italy. This is a very strong word, segregation. So, well, then we have an imbalance in terms of family responsibilities. We saw that particularly during the pandemic, the career of women are blocked, both at the beginning and at the end, and there is still a dichotomy between private and working life. There are not so many women in leading positions, and there is, in a way, also a certain way of thinking. Women tend to underestimate themselves. But what really hurts, actually, is that we have the data nowadays, and now we would need an open dialogue, a deep dialogue on all these compared data. So, well, Madame Carazzone, as in the interview, when there is an interview, women immediately thank when they are interviewed, whereas men ask for a rise in their pay. So what is the gap that needs to be overcome in terms of gender inequality on the labor market? Well, yes, there are not so many women in leading roles, but in general, women are less present than men. And what has actually changed, and we realize this if we look at these data, thanks to the Draghi administration, we managed to have a strategy to overcome this gap. And the target is to do that by 2026. There are already actions that have been already implemented. Today we have recovered the employment rate that was there before the pandemic, and we also reached a maximum level, unprecedented level. Well, it's not enough, but we are on the right path. So we have a law that was issued in 2022, the Family Act, and this deals in a joint way the problem of a lack of tools and services for maternity, the reform of parental leave, extension of all the tools that are meant for maternity leave for all workers, and then the problem of the crash that I was talking about before. Then there is also another big chapter that is that concerning the work. So reducing the costs of female work. An enterprise that hires a woman spends more, because if this woman decides to go on maternity leave, it is the enterprise that has to pay for this. The Family Act foresees that this is no longer the case, and it includes services for women that go back to work after maternity leave, and it also forces investments in the labor market. So how can we actually achieve equity? So, well, for all enterprises, we have a project within the National Plan for Resilience and Recovery, also for smaller and medium enterprises. Those enterprises that apply policies that support corporate welfare, the work of women will have fiscal benefits and will also be facilitated in case of public tenders. So this is a project that shows that investing in the work of women is a strategy and is an investment for the whole of the country.
So the situation is good in our company. We still have much to do. 60% of employees are women in our company. We make no difference when we recruit employees in terms of gender. And we look at professional skills and if people can meet our needs or the company's needs. At present, we are lacking employees. We need some 100 workers, technicians. We need different professional profiles that cannot be found on the market. And this is not in line with the, somewhat clashes with the employment policies. What's the basic problem in the end? We mainly have women working as employees, so our employees are mostly women, and therefore we're very sensitive to this issue. So, giving the maternity leave, extending the maternity leave, having the opportunity to provide services for children after school, for example, providing bonuses, book bonuses, for example. These are all initiatives that are implemented and go in the right direction. We have an increasing number of people with children living alone. They're separated. So sometimes there's also dramatic situations inside the company, and we have to tackle them. Therefore, we implemented the social housing program, for example. We have 15 apartments that we provide to our employees. There will be some more. We provide help to the children of these women who are left alone. And maybe they also have some more problems in terms of career advancement. Well, actually, women workers do not have problems in career advancement. On the contrary, due to our type of work, they can be very flexible in their job. They can choose 26 days in addition to their holidays to stay at home. So the main thing is to understand the needs promptly, so that the right initiatives can be designed and implemented before there's too many difficulties and women have too many needs. Hence, we are very close to our employees. Employees who can come and work in the company with the best possible profit for us. Let's talk about managers and the top positions. Yes. As for career advancement, in terms of specialized workers and white collars, women start advancing their career a bit later, after their maternity leave. We have quite a large number of women managers who are ready to replace the top managers in some areas. And still, this is a problem. As I said beforehand, when we recruit women, we recruit assets. and maybe they advance in their career at a later stage, even because they retire later now. I will show you a very nice video. I will tell you a very nice story. And this is done by Davide Giuliani. He went to Naples, near Naples, in the minor prison of Nisida. Minors get here, they can come out many years later, but they can start their life once again and not on their own. When I went to Nisida, I thought that my life would be over because once out, I would have borne a burden for all my life. I was very young. I was 14. I didn't know what to expect. Everything, Nisida gave me everything. To me, that island and that prison was very important to me. It gave me everything. Everything that I didn't even think of having. Nisida is an island in the Gulf of Naples. In the prison that was set up in the 1900s, there's the minor prison where talking about inclusion is no theory but practice. A change can be seen. At the beginning, people don't want to work. Then they develop a passion for work, and they relate to adults in a different way. For each minor, we try to assess what their needs are based on their experience, and we try to understand what their desires are in order to have a tailor-made program. In the prison, basically, we do cultural literacy, emotional literacy, and we also give the possibility to young people to develop their skills, which can later be used to work. This is not easy. At the beginning, it's always very difficult. These minors have made crimes, and the challenge is to have a tailor-made program so that their life can change and they can still have a better hope for a better future. There's, for example, a building workshop, or there are some courses on food preparation or restaurant services. Yes, we try to provide them with interesting services. I like the idea of giving life. So, a new life can start, and we work together with them on that. You can learn to be a pizza maker, and they give you the possibility to work, and that was the case for me. Nisida helped me to understand what I wanted to be as I grow up. I studied, I got a diploma, and I found a job that I like. It is no utopia to find a job. The important thing is that we can work all together as a network. We must support minors. Minors have to work with us, and the community also has to be sensitive to that, because our guests must be accompanied and must be supported even when they go out of prison, because they must feel that they are surrounded by a group of people that can support them beyond their difficulties and mistakes.
President Fosti, the Cariplo Foundation is one of the subjects that develops so many inclusion initiatives. In this video, we saw that the financial help is extremely important, but it's not enough in itself. Well, I believe that we needed to understand that financial resources are important, but the Cariplo Foundation has invested 3.5 billion euros in this kind of projects. But then there was a multiplying effect due to people, to organizations of the third sector who had ideas. They knew the territory. They wanted to do new things, and they knew that you can actually achieve something only if you work together with other people. This is what really gives value to this 3.5 billion euros. Otherwise, you cannot do much in spite of the money you invest. So we need to trust the future, knowing that we need strong institutions, strong companies, and strong communities. If one of these elements, things to stand alone, well, we will fail. Ms. Carazzone, we talked about projects, but they also need to be evaluated, assessed in their success. So how can you say whether an initiative was successful or not? Well, this is quite a difficult question. Personally, I think that an impact assessment has a lot of opportunities in itself if it is seen not like some kind of checklist, but rather as a participating process of constant learning for the organization of the third sector and for the financing body. This kind of assessment focuses on the intentional change that we want to bring about with a certain project, a certain initiative, and the investment on the organization of the third sector is obviously a fundamental element. Too often we have witnessed dichotomies in our country in the support to the third sector that were seen almost as enemies in a way. So, well, the money that was given should be given to projects, and, well, actually, this money can be invested in the work of the organization of the third sector. But we now need to invest in skills, in know-how, in the development of these organizations of the third sector. And, well, the impact assessment then becomes an important tool for learning how to improve the situation. Sometimes we really need to understand that we can learn more from our mistakes than from our success. Thank you, Minister Bonetti. Just to conclude, the elections are coming up in 1 month. New government. So, well, what is the project that should not be abandoned? Maybe you have a whole list, but anyway. No, I will be extremely clear. For me, the priority is the Family Act, this Law 32 of 2022, that represents really a milestone in the history of our country and is a way to tackle in an integrated and solid way some critical issues that we have had for years, and they were debated for years but were never really handled. This law was not easy to achieve. We proposed it, but then the whole of the parliament voted in favor. So there is a responsibility that has to be given back to women. And I go back to what we were saying just a few minutes ago, because it's not acceptable that the professional career should actually start after maternity leave, or that there is no sharing of the co-responsibility between parents. So then financial support for families, for their children, for an increase in the pays for women, the incentives for the independence of young couples, and the creation of new skills, new technologies for young people so that they can become the engine of the world, of the labor world. These are points that are expressed in this law. The next government cannot afford to neglect this. So I do believe that, well, this is my personal commitment. We wanted to give this continuity, but I do also believe that we can help our country to finally make the necessary leap in terms of gender opportunity. So she is the Minister of Gender Equity and Family, so we didn't say that at the beginning. Thanks to all our guests. Tomorrow we have our last talk. We will talk about Europe. We talked about resources and projects linked with the national plan for resilience and recovery. So we will have guests tomorrow to deal with this important subject. Thank you and see you tomorrow.
civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.